For today's agenda, we will be discussing two topics, one being why your colleagues don't care about quality, and then, excuse me, how to make them care. And as stated before, we'll follow that up with a Q&A session. So starting off, why your colleagues don't care about quality. So what's causing this focus on compliance and how can we avoid it? I like to open with this quote, which I think neatly encapsulates the whole problem with the quality profession and how we can start fixing it. As a profession, we are appalling at marketing ourselves. We need to get better at it, as stated by Vincent Desmond. Where are we going wrong? Being in the quality profession, we may hear some of these as captured from the Quality of Life Science Quality Survey. Quality professionals are vastly underappreciated and therefore undercompensated. Excuse me. We aren't seen as value added in a manufacturing environment. Keeping quality awareness alive in business is a constant struggle that's never over. These are just some of the points that were collected from the 2022 survey. Both quality professionals and their colleagues fall into what I call the compliance trap. Writing off the quality role as a binary tick box, inspection-based and exercise reduces the perceived significance of the role. So as you can see here on the compliance trap, if you will, from a compliance perspective, we try to move away from compliance. Compliance being more reactive, uniform, inspection-based and binary, where what we'd like to do is focus more on the quality side or the proactive piece, where it's tailored to your business and includes an elusive stretch goal, is process-based, and is about pleasing patients, stakeholders, and auditors, and not just from a tick box compliance perspective. We can see this here once you get a certificate on the wall. What is quality for? These four horsemen of what we consider a weak quality culture, if you will. Right after you get that certificate, what do we normally hear as quality professionals? We're compliant. Now let's keep going as we are, right? So you got no improvement after regulatory approval. Or there's no upgrade to tools and or tech. You know, what do we hear? Our margins are thin enough, and as they are, and more quality equals more money. So these are those that we typically hear when discussing quality and improving quality, therefore. As the state of the industry doesn't help it with that either, right? We got purchasers and customers can't see our QMS, no price premiums on a market advantage for mature companies. There's no penalties for a company to decided to stay in a system, a paper-based system with manual spreadsheets, right? So there's no penalty for doing that. So where do we help persuade or influence in moving towards a EQMS, right? It's easier to minimize costs by keeping investment in manufacturing quality low. Why quality becomes second best, right? ISO badges and FDA approval look great. Reducing your defect rate by 10% isn't something they write press releases about. The company's generating money after marketization, so the work there is done. And we always have new products coming out, new territories to enter, and work has to be done on compliance in those areas next, right? So when we discuss management talking the talk, what was found from the Quality Life Science Quality Survey in 2022, Qualio asked thousands of life science quality professionals to what extent they agreed with the following statement in the 2022 global survey, right? What is the importance of quality? The importance of quality is effectively communicated by your senior leadership. The average score when that question was asked was 8.0. Where the quality is high on your corporate agenda, the average score there was 7.9. So as we can see from these scores, management does talk the talk, if you will. But if we move to the next slide, but maybe not so much walking the walk. As we can see from these statements and their scores, we can see when it comes to walking the walk, those average scores fall a little bit from the 8.0 and 7.9 scores shown previously, right? So the quality department has the resources and support it needs to function properly. Looking at 6.9 there, the quality department is being used to its full potential, as well as the quality department receives a fair share of investment and spend compared to other areas of the business. As we can see here, these all fall under 7 and are not evidence of not walking the walk, as we would say. This cartoon neatly summarizes a self-inflicted problem experienced by most quality professionals. We rely on an insular insider language, which means little to the rest of the business. Let's take a little more detailed look at this here. The FDA has issued a 483 for an MDR with a weak FMEA. When tracing the DHF, it seems the 510K did not reference the whole DMR. We have opened up a CAPA to review all NPD SOPs in our QMS to make sure this doesn't happen again. As we can see from that statement, there's a lot of quality acronyms involved there that our business leaders may not understand, and therefore the message may not take. So this is definitely a scenario that us quality professionals, it sounds familiar to. Perhaps one or more of us in this webinar are guilty of this. We live and breathe quality data all day, and so it's natural to want to show off the work we've done by directly displaying it to the rest of the business. Picture this. It's the time for the annual quality management review, laid out in the requirements of ISO 9001. The quality manager has spent several weeks gathering huge amounts of data. They've checked it religiously, from first-time run rates to scrap levels, to make sure everything is exactly right, in case anyone notices the difference between the 1.62% and the 1.63%. We walk through into the board meeting. It's the graveyard slot over lunch so people can eat through it. We rush through the 110 slides of statistics as quickly as we can, take questions, give a few thank yous to everyone, and thank God it's all over for another year. Has anyone experienced that? I know I've been in a few of those management reviews there. The real problem, as we can see from this diagram, the failure of quality and stakeholder interests to overlap is where the problem comes from. The bigger the gulf between the two, the more siloed, ignored, and underappreciated the quality department becomes. Funding remains stagnant, and the problems we've seen emerge. Main reason for quality initiative success: top management commitment. To the other side of that coin, the main reason for quality initiative failure: the lack of top management commitment. As we can see, the success and or failure for quality initiative all starts at the top with management commitment. So how do we make our colleagues care about quality? How many of these are relevant to your businesses? I'm willing to bet that all of them are. These powerful universal business themes are all intimately connected to quality, making everyone aware that, making everyone aware of that is the key to a culture of quality where quality is recognized, valued, and supported. As we can see from the relevant themes, keeping business business, getting to market, R&D, compliance and trust, all these flow into quality. The CQI defines quality as about making organizations perform for their stakeholders. Quality and stakeholder interests are the same thing. If they're not at an extremely high level of overlap in any business, something isn't working correctly. But in the great majority of situations, businesses have a departmental view of quality and don't see it as an embedded, holistic, pan-organizational function. Finding the common ground and reinforcing is the key to getting traction, interest, and support for your quality initiatives. So as you can see, the old Venn diagram, right, and the sweet spot being where they overlap, being able to overlap our quality interests with stakeholder interests. Let's go through a couple examples and see how we can change the dynamic in the verbiage being used and or present the quality metrics so we can see this overlap. As we can see how a shift in emphasis to the middle ground can make your narrative more compelling, instead of sharing detailed device hazard analysis in the FEMA in the blue circle on the right, we can think what your data means in relations to the bigger C-suite picture and present accordingly. For example, what our C-suite or our business partners or stakeholders would like to know about is getting a medical device to market and generating revenue. So what we have to think about is how do we explain that, present that in such a way to when it comes down to the FEMA data, right? So where these two may overlap in getting to market is a Pareto. I will restate what the example is around getting to market and using our FEMA data and framing it into a language that will be received by our stakeholders, right? So using the Pareto analysis to focus on 20% of the issues causing 80% of the problems and driving that focus to our stakeholders and presenting the data that way, as opposed to using quality vernacular such as FEMA data, is where we want to move the conversation to and getting in those presentations. When it comes to talking about a product launch and involving quality in that product launch, instead of going through reams of deep QMS data about frequency of complaints, root causes, and so on, maybe we would want to try something about this, right? We want to focus on, because we know stakeholders and the business itself is focused on customer and patient sentiment to support new launch. Instead of going into those deep details around complaint data, let's frame the conversation around focusing on the top 30 most happy customers and why they are happy. Instead of going into detailed breakdowns of capital work this quarter, look at the impact. Have process times been cut? If so, what's the financial impact of that? A 10% reduction in rework, failure analysis, or task schedule slippage could mean thousands of dollars in cost savings. So how can we translate that CAPA, that rework, that deviation data into profitability and margins, impacts to both time and or costs? That's where we want to frame or drive the conversation to get the influence needed from top management and the buy-in from other stakeholders. So from this, what are we saying, right? We're saying quality is important. There's lots of quality language and lots of quality conclusions and action points. And what we'd like to move to is this, showing how quality is important, using normal language and adding some excitement, right? And using business-wide conclusions and action points, not just those focused on the quality department and or the quality function. Harnessing the big Q, right? This was a phrase coined by Dr. Joseph Juran in the 80s. Quality is to touch all aspects of the business and not be a siloed department, right? We want to be we want to touch the business and be a wide driver there. C-suite takes a business-wide view by necessity, and we need to adapt the language accordingly to get in with the other stakeholders. Some common cultural blocks here, right? So let's take each line one at a time. The blocker being, there's no direct line to leadership. So what would the solution to that be? Secure access to the executive team by pushing for quality present at board meetings, right? We don't want to, we want to be invited to the party, and in order to influence and to get a voice at the top, we need to get a direct line to leadership, making sure we are in those meetings. And when we get to those meetings, using the tactics and or language that was presented earlier, and showing and driving why quality is important, right? Leadership sees quality as a cost. I've heard this. I'm sure many of you have heard this, right? Quality is a cost center. It doesn't generate revenue. So what's the solution here? Well, we have to demonstrate how quality improves customer and patient experience and reduces churn by introducing quality awareness programs. Another hindrance in our blocker, not speaking the language of the business, right? So what do we have to do? We have to train our staffs on a broader commercial and patient impacts of their work, right? Ensure quality-specific language is only used within and between members of quality department. When we're talking to other business leaders, stakeholders from other departments, we want to make sure we're using the language that they can receive or that they use in their daily work as well. And not knowing who is engaging with quality, right? So we need to move away from our manual paper-based quality management and consider a digital EQMS that unlocks the data about engagement with an awareness of quality, such as document acknowledgements and completed training. Some more common blockers here. We got different objectives and drivers. Couple the voice of the customer with management engagement initiatives. For instance, complaint trends and subsequent capital plans might be useful to fulfill a quality management objective or get closer to a company BHAG. And the BHAG, if for those that may not know, is the big, hairy, audacious goal, right? And I believe this was coined by Jim Collins in his one of the business books, Built to Last. And that may also be something we may want to think about, or I would suggest we consider, is for our quality team members, right, that may just know quality or be so entrenched, is to open yourselves up to those business books, right? Books like Built to Last, that this BHAG acronym comes from, right? Being able to, the more we read in those business, whether it be Wall Street Journal or articles or whatever that may be, to get our teams more comfortable with using that voice of the customer and the language that our stakeholders are used to hearing, right? Lack of a tangible objective. Let's raise our awareness of quality and centralize all quality initiatives. If no other objectives exist, continuous improvement of the business by optimizing the QMS will always exist as an operational goal for any business. No single source of truth. Let's pull by leveraging or moving into an EQMS, we can pull all the quality data into a single area, ideally in a controlled digital repository. We can use a single platform as a place to access and integrate company-wide data and take action accordingly, right? And for those that have been in the quality industry for a while, you hear terms like total quality management, right? And that's what that phrase to me means when we talk about total quality management is moving out of the looking at quality in a siloed functional area and incorporating and pulling in those other stakeholders so that we're all using a single source of truth for pooling, and we can see where one department may impact another or one process may impact another, and see how we can then work together to improve those processes when the data reflects such, right? Again, with any relationship, not communicating, right? So we want to schedule and make sure we schedule those weekly and monthly meetings demonstrating objectives and results, not only emphasizing successes just as much as shortcomings and failures. And when you schedule these meetings, we got to make sure and be cognizant not to just schedule a meeting just for the sake of scheduling a meeting. We want to make sure that there's a purpose behind the meeting. It has a standard agenda, and we're coming out with action items or an output where both parties or all parties, stakeholders, can agree with the outcome of each meeting. And as been stated before, we always want to use talking the language of leadership. Many senior management figures appreciate a certificate on the wall. Let's tap into that desire and use that to our advantage. Let's explain how to use the standard to benefit the company, not necessarily the certification body. When addressing lack of accountability, let's use layered process audits driven by top management so that we can see real acts of noncompliance in day-to-day activity. And when defining leadership, let's have the confidence in the value and importance of our role as quality professionals and sharpen our leadership skills. Leadership books, as stated before, quality and compliance blogs, industry updates will all help in keeping you in the know with clear objectives. We can assist or tell, but we can make it as automatic for quality to be in the boardroom as sales or finance or HR. Everyone expects them to be there. There's a statement by Mark here. Let's use industry content as an ammo, right? Qualio's Consumer Sentiment Report is a perfect example showing how the QMS has a deep knock-on, a deep knock-on effect on public trust and brand loyalty. We can look at public actively following news updates about the products that they use. Also involved in this is recalls, warning letters, bad quality press, directly erode consumer trust. Consumers in favor of quality as a public-facing metric, which informs buying decisions. All this can be garnered within this consumer and quality sentiment report. All that to be said, in short, quality does matter in the industry. Adapt. As those in the quality industry know, when we do like acronyms, let's take the word adapt, right? Anticipate the context and let's tweak our message accordingly. Let's drive and energize people by fostering a sense of purpose. Accelerate our message and cut through the noise of our own data. Partner with leaders in sales, finance, marketing to reinforce our value. And let's turn quality language into business language. Let's be a salesperson. Making quality painless, right? Nobody likes long paper-based quality tasks. Make unavoidable quality work like training quick and painless with modern EQMS tools. Let's connect employees to a shared source of truth to make their jobs easier. And let's make ease of use, accessibility, and rollout your EQMS criteria. What is the industry looking for? Well, the FDA will run a voluntary quality surveillance program in the near future. Whether or not your business takes part and whether or not you're a pharmaceutical operation, the structure of the program gives you a great idea of how the industry envisions a high quality organization. Participating companies will receive a public facing FDA set score of their quality maturity and general commitment and a vibrant quality culture at the heart of this new world order. So as we can see, moving from a weak to a strong maturity level, when we think about a weak or immature level, we think of general unspecific matrix, minimal product review programs, and reacting to existing problems. As we start to evolve or the QMS matures, we go from the general unspecific metrics to more evolution in metric selection, promotion of a quality culture, and as you can see what's highlighted, senior management commitment to quality. And when we're stronger or at the top here, we see as what's highlighted, senior management and general staff's commitment to quality. So not only, as we can see, it's more buy-in as this QMS matures, and that's what we're looking for as we evolve and want to make our QMS more accepted throughout the business. Five building blocks of a quality culture. Of course, as stated before, it starts with leadership, right? We need leadership quality advocates. We want to empower the team members and our employees. We want to make sure we focus, we want to be customer centric in operation. Collaboration should be the norm when working with our other functions and our stakeholders within the business. And a formal and structured continual improvement program and our processes. These are what we find as the five building blocks of a quality culture. Five things to demand from your leaders, right? One, clear definition of the organizational hierarchy, roles, and performance. If there's not clear definition and or expectation, it's tough to know where quality stands and what others expect from quality. We want SMART goals, right? SMART goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, excuse me, SMART goals and with a mission, SMART goals and a mission, excuse me. We want to make sure we continue to monitor our performance. We want to spend time every week to review our metrics to make sure and to manage how things are going, right? There's an old adage or old saying, what gets measured gets done. So we want to invest plenty of time in first identifying those SMART goals and then monitoring those. And then by doing that, you can then adjust as needed. But a lot of time should be taken to identify what those goals and aligning those goals with the overall mission of the company, right? And we want to make sure things are clear, collective, and with the collective corporate culture, right? Again, we want to be inclusive, not our own department in a siloed group, but we want to make sure they are collaborative and inclusive for sure. Quality, not compliance, is a never-ending excellence goal, right? It falls on you, the quality professional, to shift the emphasis from compliance to quality, from boring tick box exercises and compliance must-haves to a competitive weapon that will blow the competition away. And that's where we want to move from as quality professionals, from compliance to quality. So as we're wrapping up, let's celebrate quality. Let's consider ways to reward teams for contributing to the quality culture. Let's set friendly competitions around quality KPIs. Reward the site with the least wastage or the department with the best turnover around time, right? If employees suggest an improvement and it's implemented, let's reward reward them and encourage for further suggestions, right? We want to take small wins and celebrate those small wins that we celebrate turn into two big wins. So let's do a great job at finding those wins and making sure we highlight and or celebrate those wins throughout the organization that you're in. So that concludes the presentation, or the presentation piece. Now we're going to open it up for question and answer, and I will turn it back over to you, Sonia.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Josh, for that very insightful presentation. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Now we're going to begin the Q&A just like Josh said, and we'll put on our webcams for that. So I'll invite Josh to put on his webcam. Hi, everyone. Now, as a reminder to our audience members, remember you can send in your questions by using that questions window that's located on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll try to attend to your questions during this time that we have together. So Josh, here's the first question that I have for you. This audience member is asking, how do I determine the handful of stats the C-level will most care about? That's a good one.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And to be able to determine that, we have to have a seat at the table. So as was stated in the presentations earlier, right, we want to make sure we're engaged with those in those leadership meetings, those business meetings, and understanding what the C-suite leaders are looking for, and tailor the conversation around that. But in order to know what they are, we got to have a seat at the table in those meetings in a direct line to leadership.
Okay, thank you for answering that, Josh. We'll go to our next question now. This audience member is asking, how can I make the quality management review resonate for the board rather than something they have to do?
Yeah, it's to involve them, right? As quality professionals, what we always do is we end up being the ones, the quality group puts the presentation together. My recommendation would be to share the responsibility of putting that presentation together, have ownership in the presentation, and that's how you share buy-in, is don't do the presentation or don't prepare the presentation just as a quality team. Involve the other departments such that there's ownership across the board.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Josh. I'm going to go to our next question now. This audience member is asking, how can I use quality to make work easier or more straightforward for my colleagues and engage them that way? That's a good one.
Yeah. To make work easier, that's a great question. And to be able to do that, you have to be involved in and know the work they do, right? You have to share or be engaged and show that you care about the work they're doing and understanding the work, right? Before we can make an improvement, we should actually know the intent behind what they're doing, understand what they're doing, and then offer suggestions, right? Not just coming in to be a lot of the language that we hear sometimes as quality professionals is, we're just the flavor of the month, right? And what we want to have is staying power. And in order to stay, we got to really understand, get their input, and then bring them into the solution generation and not just offering or flowing down the solution, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Okay, this looks like it may be our last question. So audience member, remember you can send in your questions using that questions window. But if we have no more questions, this looks like it's our last one. Oh, this is an interesting one. This audience member is saying it's a cart and a horse situation. If we don't have a good quality culture, how can I convince leadership to invest in a EQMS to make quality more central?
Yeah, and this is using the language that they find receptive, right? We talked earlier in the presentation is learning, getting engaged with different, reading different business journals, reading different business books to understand the communication that your leaders are receptive to. Like in any relationship, it's a two-way street. And it's no different when it comes to quality and the other departments within the organization, whether that be engineering or operations, and knowing the language that they're receptive to is key in infiltrating, if you will, or influencing others to care about quality or being more involved in quality. So we always want to use to try to adapt, right? That acronym that we provided earlier, right? We want to adapt our language in a vernacular where it will be receptive, whether that's with engineering or operations or top management.
Oh, good advice there. Well, thank you very much for that, Josh. Well, thank you very much for those answers, Josh. We've reached the end of the Q&A portion of the webinar. If we couldn't attend to your questions, the team at Qualio will follow up with you after this presentation. And if you have any further questions, please utilize the email addresses on your screen. There's one there for Josh, and then marketing@qualio.com is another one you can utilize. So please go ahead and reach out. Thank you everyone for participating in today's webinar. You will be receiving a follow-up email from X-Talks with access to the recorded archive for this event. A survey window will be popping up on your screen. Your participation is strongly encouraged and very much appreciated, as it will help us to improve on our further webinars. Now, I'm about to send you a link in your chat box, so give me a few seconds and you'll be able to view the recording of this event on this page, and you can also share this link with your colleagues once they register for the recording here as well. So I encourage you to do that. Now, please join us in thanking our speaker, Josh, for that very informative presentation. I hope you all enjoyed it. So thank you, Josh.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, it has been my pleasure to be your webinar moderator on behalf of the team here at X-Talks. I'm Sonia Hunt. Thank you very much for joining us. Until next time, please take care and bye for now. Bye, everyone. Bye, Josh.
See ya.
Bye.